Okay, hi everybody. This is Kevin with Leading Edge Financial Planning again here with Andy Christopher, our United guru from our company. Nobody likes to be called a guru, Andy. But
That's
anyway,
right.
you are somebody that digs deep into some of the benefits and some of the issues around United Pilots. So we very much appreciate that today. Today is all about my favorite radio station, WIIFM, What's in It for Me? And really, that's what disability coverage is all about. It's what's in it for you. I mean, this is a benefit, unfortunately, that many pilots do get to use. And so it's pretty important for the person themselves, not just for the family, but it obviously involves everybody. So Andy, let's get into it a little bit
Yeah.
about what are we going to talk about today with the disability? What are the main goals of this presentation?
Yeah, I think right off the bat, you just hit the nail on the head, right? Is we don't think about disability all the time, but we probably should, especially as pilots. When as a non-pilot, you probably think disability, it's like I can't do anything, I can't work, I'm bedridden, right? Well, that's maybe not the case for pilots, as all of our pilot listeners know, right? If you have something that's what seems to the layperson fairly mundane, but to your AME is serious, then that becomes a big problem from how you're going to get income, right? And so
That's right.
I think one of the biggest risks our pilots face is just that of, hey, you have a otherwise non-serious medical condition, but then you're never going to get a class one medical ever again. And then all of a sudden, boom, we've got a problem here that we need to resolve.
Yeah. Yeah.
The good news is we have things available to us, especially as pilots, designed specifically to help us if that situation were to unfortunately arise. And so we're going to just break down the United Airlines. What is that long-term disability? How do you access it? And then what are maybe some options and things to think about from a planning perspective when it comes to long-term disability?
Yeah. So if I had a nickel for every time a pilot says, I can fly planes, I can't do anything else, I'd be a rich man, and that's not really true. We know, but anyway,
Sure.
the ability to earn big money does get severely limited if pilots are disabled. So
Yep.
Andy, first of all, we have the 50% rule here. With United, can you just talk a little bit about the 50% rule and how high income people might be affected by that 50% rule?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is you're right. It's about 50%. Really, it's excuse me. Really, it's if you take 42.75 times your pay rate, which should be about 50%. That's what you're going to get as a disability payout, right? You're going to get 42.75, right? Think 50%. So right off the
Mhm.
bat, think about, hey, what if I only got 50% of my approximate income? Some goodness here, right? It's going to pay you to age 65. That's mandatory
Yeah,
pilot retirement age. It's tax free. That's also
that's great.
really good. And then triggered by a loss of license, that risk that we just talked about of a disability that is otherwise innocuous becomes a big problem, right?
Mhm.
You want that to be your triggering event, and paid monthly in arrears, right? So some things to think about from just a cash flow timing perspective. How does that sound to you, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, that is great that it goes all the way to 65. And again, I think, the major message here, Andy, is, you're disabled, now what? So
Yeah.
actually think about if you're getting 50% of your pay, if you're going to be able to, live your lifestyle or what might have to be foregone,
Yeah.
if that happens. So I think that's the first litmus test really for pilots to think about is what happens if I'm getting 50%.
Yeah, and I would encourage every pilot to create that budget spreadsheet, right? And just work the numbers just to see what it looks like. What would it take? Maybe it's, we're not going to Whole Foods anymore, right? For groceries, things of that nature. It's important.
Absolutely. Okay, Andy. So what's next?
You want to keeping the nitty gritty here.
Okay.
So, things, hey, how are we going to pay for this, right? I think people care about that. Fortunately, the new contract, the company's going to pay 75% of the premium. You'll pay 25%. That's going to be after tax. That's how we make this a tax-free
Mhm.
benefit. And then because it's tax free, and the company is paying 75%, that's going to be considered essentially a fringe benefit, or you will see imputed income on your pay stub associated with that.
Yeah, please see all our other videos about imputed income. We
Yeah,
don't think imputed income is bad, although it feels bad when you see it on your paycheck or your pay stub. Go ahead,
no
Andy.
doubt. No doubt. All right. For our high earners out there, it's capped, right? So you're capped. This is as of 1/1/24. That number will go up over the years. You're capped at 14,339, right?
Mhm.
So what's the break even here? We'll look at that in a little bit, but really think about um, if I'm making 335, so a lot of our captains an
Mhm.
hour or more, you're
Mhm.
not getting 50% anymore, right? You're getting some number less than that. And so that budget discussion you have with your family changes based upon, what is this number really? So you probably think about $15,000 tax free just coming as a check every month. What can I live off of that? Right. And that's so it
Yeah.
just becomes your number.
Yeah, and Andy, I think 50% above should have an asterisk next to it unless you're
Yeah.
making a lot of
Here.
money. And then it might not be 50%. I know you're going to get into that,
That's
but
right.
yeah, that's the way to think of it. So go ahead.
That's right. Another great benefit is you're still going to get as your 401k. What is right now your 401k or that non-elective contribution? So 17%. That the way the contract is written, right? And of course, we're still waiting on private letter rulings and all this with the IRS, is going to go into that market-based cash balance plan, which is just a pension plan, right?
Mhm.
So think still qualified type income, right? Can't access till 59 and a half. But what's nice is that non-elective contribution is still going to be paid, essentially based on your full earnings. There's some nuance there, but think about you're still getting that non-elective contribution. So we're still saving for retirement, even when we're on a long-term disability. So thumbs up there, right? That's a huge benefit.
Big game changer in most of the last contracts for all the major carriers. Really exciting to us as financial planners that you go on
Yep.
disability and used to be you just try to survive. Now at least you can continue to save. So go ahead, Andy.
Yep. If you are on the United Medical plan, then you will continue to be able to be on that plan at the active pilot rate. So another huge benefit, right? Especially if you think about if you're disabled, what might be hard to get? Probably medical insurance.
Yep.
Of course, there's rules associated with that. But health insurance is that's essentially taken care of for you until age 65, and you'll jump over to Medicare. And then the offsets, right? People always talk about what are the problem with offsets, right? That just all that offset is if other monies are coming in that would reduce your benefits. So we've really pared down, the contract has really pared down the offsets. So no offsets if you're getting Social Security, California, SDI, for those who are in California, it'd be the same if you're in, say, New Jersey,
Yeah.
which is great, right? It will be reduced by compensation paid by the company, not including profit sharing or vacation. So really very few offsets, which just means you're going to get the full benefit of the long-term disability.
Yeah,
So
so the
again,
devil's
a
always
positive.
in the details, but in this case, there's no details. It's not going to
Very
be
few.
offset. So that's
Yeah.
really wonderful.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway, right, is we've got a pretty good plan, right? And it's just going to be a personal life decision if
Mhm.
does this hit the mark for you, right? Or are there other things we need to be thinking about? I say, how are we going to get on long-term disability? I mean, how are we going to get paid or start the payment?
Yep.
So this is where it can get a little bit nuanced. And the contract is going to break it out via non-occupational or occupational, right? So non-occupational is your mountain biking on the weekends, right? And your time off, and you get injured. So you've got a 60-day wait period. That's pretty good.
Hmm.
Or, right, it's the ladder of your sick bank to 120 hours. So if you've got a
Hmm.
huge sick bank, you're at that maximum 1,300. You're probably going to be in this waiting period, not accessing your long-term disability benefit well in excess of the 60-day period. It doesn't mean it's
Sure.
a bad thing. I think the one downside would be, yeah, if I got to wait and then I come off my long-term disability, I'm coming back with 120 hours, right, of
Hmm.
long-term, I'm sorry, of sick leave, right? So you just had to kind of think through if then subsequently you got sick on something totally different. You can burn that sick leave further down to 120. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that. Um, for the reasons we just discussed, right? If I don't want to really go below 120 hours.
Yeah, unless you don't think you're coming back,
Yeah, there you go.
then that would be the only reason to do it. So yeah, so I mean, you really need to survive for the 60 days, have enough money for that. You're going to use your sick leave to help pay you during that time. Go ahead, Andy.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Now let's flip the script here. If you're occupational, right? So this would be you're on the walk around, you trip over one of the chalks and break your arm, right? So now we're on an occupational type disability. Still a 60-day wait period, but we don't have to burn the sick leave down. You now have the option of additional sick leave. So this is where, hey, yeah, you are that high sick leave balance pilot. You could take it down 1,300. You could burn that quite a bit. And to Kevin's point, right, maybe you don't think you're coming back, right? So if you reserve sick leave and you don't come back, that'll be forfeited. So
Right.
but let's talk about, hey, what if you do exhaust that sick leave, right? Or I wouldn't say you exhaust it, well, you do, but prior to the disability, right? So in other words, you have less than 2 months of sick on hand. Now what's going to happen? Well, you got this thing called ESB, that's extended sick bank. That's a new contract term. That's essentially
Mhm.
what is meant to be short-term disability. We'll talk about that. So you can jump into that. There's a 15-hour wait period.
Mhm.
You have what's called LAC or long-term disability access credits. We can talk about that. And then you can tap into the vacation once you've exhausted those sick leave benefits. So, as Kevin, as we were talking earlier, right? Again, there's really not a huge strategy here. And if you get disabled, you're just going to have to talk to the company and work through like, hey, what are my options here? What do I have available? And they can advise you.
Yeah, I mean, most careers, you don't have most of this or any of it. So this is good that you have multiple different buckets that you could take, to help pay for the disability.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the other strategy we haven't mentioned that we should is just having an emergency cash on hand as a way to supplement you if you have to go on a short-term disability and frankly a long-term
Yeah.
disability as well, right? If we think about we're only getting the 50% pre-tax coverage.
Yeah. So for pilots that are just thinking, hey, it's 50%, it is what it is. One of my favorite terms, also the most irritating term. It is what it is. But
Yes.
like you're going to get 50%. So why bother even thinking about it, Andy? What are the strategies or ideas that you have for pilots that are saying, 50% might not be quite enough for us?
Yeah, well, now you got to look at, what are my other insurance options, right? In addition to the United Airlines long-term disability, how do I add some meat on the bones, right, from a
Hmm.
disability benefit? Key question, right? Is this enough coverage?
Hmm.
Right? That's the number
Hmm.
one question you have to ask yourself, and
Hmm.
actually plan that budget out. Like I said, you're going to top out as a captain. A year 12 wide body, you're only going to get 37.5%
Wow.
of that pay, right? So that's going to change the dynamics. So where can I get some extra coverage, right? Well, we can look at Alpa, right? They do have a plan. I think there's some goods and others that that are things to consider. Number one is you can get up to another $4,800 per month in this what they call the monthly base plan, right? So if you think about if you're capped at 14 plus another 48, then that's not insignificant, right? That's
That
not
sounds
an
great.
insignificant.
That sounds really great.
What are some others, right? I guess the other good thing here while we're talking goods is
Yeah.
it is own occupation, specifically loss of license. So that's
Yeah.
good, right? So we don't want to be paying for a disability that's has a different definition of disability.
Right.
And some things maybe, it's a 12-month wait period, right?
Mm,
So I've got to wait a full year before I start collecting this additional LTD.
not so good.
Not as good, and it's only going to pay 48 months. So you're going to get
Not so
4
good.
years of benefits. Yeah. So as opposed to your United Airlines long-term disability, which is paying you to age 65 to mandatory pilot retirement age, you're only going to get essentially 4 years of payout on a monthly base.
Andy,
I
what's
think the
really
math.
interesting to me is that, insurance companies always like to limit risk. And what these policies do is the insurance company knows exactly how much they're going to pay out at the maximum. They know 48 months times whatever the amount they're going to pay.
That's right.
But then there's times even it's not 48 months, which I was a little bit surprised about. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You can jump into the monthly plus. Now that will pay you to age 65. It's got a 5-year wait period. Essentially, that just means once you jump off of the monthly base, you jump into the monthly plus, but the number's going to go down, right, to maximum of 2,400 per month. So essentially 50% of the monthly base benefit. And I think the real kicker here is it's any gainful occupation. So it's no longer a loss of license definition of disability. So you really got to be, like you can't work, right? And there's a definition. I encourage those of you to look at the ALPA website. It's got this comes straight from the brochure there. But you got to do your homework on, is it really worth the monthly plus if I'm going to get fairly reduced benefit, and it means I've got to be pretty severely disabled to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that
Kevin?
great. We can't make any recommendations, but it doesn't seem that great. But anyway,
Yeah.
So Andy, probably the best insurance for disability would be self-insurance, like having some funds in a brokerage account or somewhere else. If you can, we always think the best way to solve any problem is to save more, but that's not always possible. But that is a strategy that our captains, that are maybe young captains making a lot of money, if they did want to help self-insure a little bit, they could build another bank of money in a brokerage account or in a bank.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So obviously self-insurance is premium free for the most part. So that's always good, right? You can pay yourself. And then I think it's like we've been talking about, just thinking through what that number looks like. How are you going to get through the wait period? If once you get through the wait period, how are you going to support yourself, support your family on that long-term disability payout, and just kind of go through those. Do yourself the benefit of the exercise now to go through those numbers, so you can be prepared and plan for that.
Yeah. So take-home messages is go ahead and make yourself disabled in your mind and see what 50% is, see what strategies you have. Maybe, a lot of our pilots, they have spouses that might be home, but they're highly intelligent and could work. Have that discussion, now. Get more insurance. You could look at the ALPA. You could save more. You can always save more. And if you do become disabled, I really think the issue here is that there is some ways to get paid through some of the different mechanisms that United has. And, we think, they're not that material that you have to really plan and strategize for those. But when you do become disabled, you can really look them up and see what options you have available to get money.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.